thing was about. And I was like, oh, this is so cool that a community can use a tool like this to raise its own money and then like define the terms of its whole economic system. I was just like, oh, that's so, like, it was just, I got it. It was cool. I remember it. I'm going to pass it on to DNAC.
I'm sorry, I'm eating ice cream and my tongue is a little bit freeze. But my favorite moment, as simple as this covered, feel that sensation of what is this? This is amazing. I'm totally new in this world, so just for me, discover it, getting involved in this. I will pass it to Vance.
Thanks. Oh gosh, I think kind of like the realization of what bonding curves can do, and like get like kind of that understanding. I'd have to second Gideon on that. That was good. Airdrops are always fun too, though. I'll pass to NT.
NT cannot talk at this moment, so I will pass it on to Amanda.
Thanks, Edu. Man, favorite moment. Man, would have been probably when I was offered to become a paid contributor for the TC. After working for a little bit, and even even paying for some of the media or videos that were done out of my own pocket, and then I guess people realized that I was very invested into the community, and then Chewy talked to Griff, and then Griff offered me a position, and that was extremely satisfying. So probably that, yeah. Yeah, so I will pass it to, maybe I could say a little bit more about that, but I want to get our recording settled, so I will pass the torch to Costa.
Hi everyone. I don't think I have like a favorite moment yet. I'm just really new to the community and to everything. So just like Kinesi, I would say that my favorite part is just like being warmly welcomed by everyone. So thanks everyone. I'll pass it to Gideon.
I already went, but how about we pass it to Wesley?
Thank you.
Sure, sounds good. For me, it's kind of the opposite, I guess. I've been around in the space for a while. It's hard to pick just one favorite moment. Big plus on when certain concepts start to click. It's bonding curves, to be honest, they never really clicked with me. So maybe I should dive into those again. But a lot of other things. The moment when it clicks, decentralization, smart contracts. A lot of these concepts, it's just amazing to see how that works out, and how the community rallies behind some of these things to just go on full speed ahead and trying these new things out, experimenting, and seeing all that comes out of it. That just really excites me in general. And something I haven't heard yet is in-person events. Almost everything is remote, which I really enjoy. But then coming together at especially the bigger events, that's just, it gives so much excitement seeing everyone and meeting in person, and again, all coming together and work on these things. It's usually very energizing to be there.
Yeah, right.
I'll pass it on Septimus, last one, I guess.
Septimus, will you like to take it on, or will you pass? Because he was not going to engage on the call because he's only recording, I think.
Okay.
So there you go. All right. Thank you so much. I do agree that events are a big part. I had forgotten about that one. So the agenda for today, it's quite short because we have a lot of things to discuss today. So we will start from the basics, and so today it's a very kind of focus call on the community and the aspects that we are trying to build and the process that we're trying to build for the journey here of the user. And one of the first things we attempt to do, and this is was initially brought by Gideon, was an FAQ. So we try to follow one of Gideon's suggestions and advices, which is, can we pick easy to do a task and assign it to someone new? So what we did is that we assigned to Costa to go through the channels and try to pick the latest, most frequent question that have been asked and try to come up with proper answers to those. So I will pass it on to Costa for him to share a little bit of his findings. I will open the document that he wrote, and he can also introduce himself for the folks here that doesn't know you. So go ahead.
Thank you. So I started being a guide last week, and I was assigned the task of recollecting like the most frequently asked questions on the Discord. I went through most of the Discord up to December and organized the most asked questions in like 7 groups that I thought were like the most common, which were questions regarding orientation, like the call or the timing on the call, the different working groups, if the call was being recorded. Then some questions about getting involved, like the resources that people have or where they should start looking or how can they get hands-on experience. Then there were also some questions about the reward system, the academy, the job board, Discord, and consultancy. What I did was kind of summarize the responses that the stewards had been given, and the stewards and the previous guys had been given to the questions, and made a final response to a certain question. And that was quite it. I also added some links, like for example, if either you can go to the academy. So there was a lot of questions regarding where people could find like links and documents, and I just like responded like with links. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, I think that was all I had to say about it.
Perfect. Thank you, Costa. And Gideon, so basically this is to connect also with, you were the guy who previously suggested to create this FAQ, and then, you have like a plan of first for guides, then for the working groups, and then for the community. I think it was the scaling of this. So I think it's a first nice step. I think we will have to go through corrections and see what things could be amended. Do you want to provide any feedback regarding this, Gideon?
No, today was the first day I saw this. It looks awesome. It's great. I'm so excited. And actually, have you touched base with Nate at all on any of this? Because this is something he's been thinking about too. So that's probably be good to get his eyes on it too. But I think it's great. Awesome.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, you're right. I will share this. I will ping him so he's aware of this existence. All right. So, does anyone else wants to provide feedback regarding this document? I know it's just presented, but if someone else wants to share something, 5, 4, 3, 2. All right. Shall we pass it on to you, Gideon, for the TC and its people?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Edu. So a couple weeks ago, just as background, some on this call may not be familiar with this, but basically I sent out a document that was, it started off as kind of like trying to summarize some of the things we've agreed on and talked about here in Communitas about onboarding. And then I kind of ended up running into some bigger issues that I wanted to address it's not like I wanted to, but they just kind of came out as I was working on this. And got a lot of feedback. Some was kind of challenging feedback. People were kind of concerned about some of the things I was talking about. And then lots of it was also very constructive too. So I'm going to separate that document into kind of two things. One is stuff that was kind of bigger picture things. Not going to talk about that today, about like the overall community and this deliberate development thing that I was talking about in that. But Wesley, that may be something you want to look at, or we can talk about later about kind of the process of deliberately developmental organizations. Today, I just wanted to focus in on the parts of that related specifically to Communitas. This is something that Eduardo and I have been going back and forth on. He's doing work on this. I'm doing work on this. We're syncing up on it. And I thought that today it'd be good to just kind of focus in on two things that were in that document. The first is basically has to do with like, both of them are kind of related to assessing people who are coming in. And by that, I don't mean like, do you get in or not? Do you get into the TEC? That was something that was a source of misunderstanding in that document. The first is kind of like an assessment of people's commitment. Like, how interested are they in this community? How excited are they about this place? And the second is, what interests do they have? Like, what are their interests, and then also their capacities? Like, what are the skills and things that they bring? So the first one, let's talk about that first one first. I just want to kind of provide a little bit of context into why that I think is so important for us to assess the level of commitment that somebody's bringing into this organization. I think that the key to understanding the challenge that Communitas faces is really wrapping our heads around the implications of being a permissionless organization. Like, this is a really radical thing that we're doing here, not just us, but all of Web3, by allowing pretty much anybody to come in at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Anybody can come into our Discord server and join the community. And so the question is, how do we meet those people who are coming in? And to understand some of the, why this is so challenging, or one way of dealing with that kind of the influx of people. A long time ago, the organization I used to work with, we developed this kind of like a framework for thinking about, this was mostly in the world of nonprofits, but bringing in lots of people to volunteer in an organization. And that world was kind of similar in the sense that like any volunteer could come to an organization at any time and just decide to volunteer. And so these nonprofits were really struggling with, how do you deal with that influx of people? And I think that there's some things that we can learn from that. And the basic, without going into all the details, if you think of like a pyramid, not in the sense of like the old school hierarchies, right? Like that's not what this is about. This is about building kind of like a pyramid of engagement so that the bottom of the pyramid is really open and anybody can come in, and you can see that the bottom of that pyramid is like really broad, and that means that it can handle lots and lots of people. But the key is the forms of engagement at that bottom level have to be really simple. Because if you've got a lot of people coming in and we need to treat every one of those people personally, and like do like deep levels of personal touch, we're going to get overwhelmed. Like poor Eduardo and now Costa and Manu are going to get completely overwhelmed if like they have to spend 5 hours with each of those people. It's just not going to scale. It won't work. And so we need some ways, some kind of low resource ways of being able to meet those people where they're at, right? Out of respect, it means like not everybody is going to be coming in knowing what a bonding curve is, an augmented bonding curve. Like, not everybody's going to know all this stuff that we learn here, right? So it's like, how do we meet them in an appropriate and respectful way that allows them to engage and show, hey, I'm interested. I may not know a lot yet, but I'm interested. I like this. I like these people. I like this mission. How do I get involved? And so it's like really making it very easy to scale out the way that we engage the people who are just showing up for the first time. That's kind of the basic, one of the basic things that that document was trying to get at, is how do we build the systems, the processes, the roles, and things like that to be able to do that. And actually, Wesley, this is one of the things I think that, one of the reasons I'm so excited about what you're working on is I think that there could be some really nice ways to plug that into that. And so I'm just gonna stop right there, because I'm gonna go to the second thing, and then I just want to open it up to get a discussion going. But the second thing is, when it comes to assessing people's interests and capacities, the other thing I was trying to get at, so the first one is, how do we assess their commitment and their excitement? And then the second one is, how do we assess their interests and their capacities? And the short version of what I was trying to say in that document is, I believe that Communitas can play a really valuable role in assessing the interests and then handing those people off, or ushering them to the right working group. We've talked about this. This is nothing new. But then I think that there's some role for that the TEC has to be able to play to assess people's capacity, right? So that we know how to match them with the right level of work. And at that point, we need to just think about what is the work that person's going to end up doing, right? So there may be some general things that we ask people to do for the community, like follow us on Twitter, sign up for a forum account, etc., right? But the more interesting, probably more interesting types of engagement is going to be getting people into working groups and plugging them into service of some sort. And so we can do some work with assessing interests, but being able to assess the capacities is something that we probably want to hand over to the working groups, and help the working groups to be able to come up with some ways that people can do self-assessments to figure out what they know about gravity, what they know about governance, what they know about the tech or legal or whatever it is. And so let's stop right there and just make some space to talk about these things. How about that? Sorry for going on for so long, but I think it was important to kind of provide that context.
Yeah, that's okay. Welcome, Jury 567. You are on the orientation call. Do you want to introduce yourself? Sorry, you are in the working group call. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, I was just looking to the group and like getting familiarized with the ecosystem.
Nice. You're more than welcome to stay. We are currently talking, to provide you context, we're currently talking about how to provide a better support and a better process of onboarding and community engagement. So, Gideon, going back to your point, yeah, I think it's healthy for me and to understand this. This is how long also with Wesley POC, which is the capacity of self-assessment. I feel that for me became key after it was mentioned last call. So we just give the tools to people to be able to self-assess themselves. So we actually don't impose any role or any kind of perception that we may have. Oh, you look no, it's like your, I don't know, survey, your POC came out with this answer. So it seems that your competence or your interest is more on this area. So I feel the word assessing, yeah, it's a little bit impositive. So yeah, I will go for self-assessment on that side. And just to provide some context regarding this, there was on this Figma. By the way, the agenda, for the folks who doesn't know, the agenda is shared on the community text channel in case you need to look for the links for all the documents that has been shared. So I tried to pull out this thing that we talked with Gideon, that Gideon just mentioned on this Figma, and probably this all will be sent to to the trash if we use POC, because it will make our life easier, Wesley. But the reasons why we are doing this and the agenda today is so you can have an overview of the process that we are having and how we can sort of incorporate and where we are at the moment. So this document, this Figma that it's taking a while to load, try to explain different possibilities of self-assessment and what we can do to promote them. Because the thing is that I see two things. The first one is that we will need to provide tools to the working groups to provide assessments of the capacities of the people who join afterwards. So we will need to create a workflow in order for them, in order to know how to tackle this. And then secondly, how we can incentivize people going into self-assessment, because not only that it has to exist, there should be some form of incentive or a motivation, let's say a motivation for people to go through this process. So here it's a little bit of what is our current process. So we right now, Wesley, when we do the welcoming, we basically do the onboarding, we do the verification, there is a survey that is opt-in, and there is a welcoming, and there is a detailed answer based on the survey that you opt in, and then we basically ask you certain questions related to that answer that you provided on the survey. And the way we welcome you, it's like trying to engage you. And then the part that we're trying to develop now is the second one that Gideon mentioned, which is self-assessing and guidance. And for me, it's the idea that you self-assess yourself and we provide the guidance for after you self-assess yourself, if that makes any sense. And there were different options. Like for me, the path where you had a clear idea of your areas of skills or your areas of interest, or you don't. And if you do not know what are your areas of interest, then we give you packages of tasks to do. For example, what Gideon mentioned, we give you Twitter to follow, share your favorite Medium article of the TEC, ask a question about the Git book, or share a forum post, for example. But if you have an area of interest and you pick a task, a guy, Costa, Manu, and me follow that task up, and then we give you visibility by presenting that, just like Costa did today, like presenting the work that he did. You will be given a space in the working group call to present whatever you do. You receive feedback, and it becomes like a sort of an incentive. Plus, you receive praise, TC tokens, and the POAP if you complete this, or if you complete one of the packages of following the Twitter, share, and stuff. But that's it. Like that's the point where I'm like, okay, fine, but how do we incorporate this? Like it is as easy as it looks, or do we need more documentation? So, Momano, go ahead. I see you're muted.
Yeah, I think I really like what Gideon explained, and I think like a crucial part of this is I like the relying on the working groups, and I think how we can have them meet us halfway is by providing, and we've mentioned this before, providing a list of issues or tasks that for newcomers, right? We already have a category for that in GitHub, but it's not updated. And so that can be part of the guide role, or even my role as coordination lead, syncing with the different stewards of the working groups and being like, hey, based on the current tasks that you want to have done by this sprint or next sprint, or in the short term, like which of these you think anyone could do with a small type of onboarding, so just wanted to post that again because it's worth I think noting, but that was all. Just I think that would incorporate itself pretty seamlessly into the process that Gideon explained and that Edu has been talking about.
Thank you, Manu. I want to welcome Jox to this call. Do you want to introduce yourself, Jox, before we keep moving with the meeting? Jogs, I see that you are unmuted, but it seems that your audio doesn't come across. So whenever you fix your audio, please let me know. Gideon, would you like to say something?
Yeah, just two things. One, Manu, I'm very excited that you see things that way, because I think that that's really going to be important. And actually, one of the things I'm very interested in is this idea of having somebody in each one of the working groups to be kind of like a point person, who can be like half of the bridge, right? So you have somebody, say maybe in SoftGov or Gravity or wherever, who becomes like a primary point of contact, and they also maybe act as like a guide within their working group to kind of help onboard people into the working group. So it's like you got Communitas that's serving as onboarding for the community, and then we, usher people to working group, and then there's like a handoff to somebody so that we know that they're taken care of. That was just one thing. And then the second thing, I feel like there's a philosophical thing that might be good to just discuss in this group here, which is, kind of what I'm talking about with this proof of or demonstration of commitment, is it's like an easy way for somebody to come in and say like, oh, I'm excited about this. And having that little bar there then is a signal to us that's like, oh, these are good people to invest in, right? Because we don't know, some people just show up and they're not interested at all, but they're kind of curious, but they're not going to stick, right? And that's nothing that we're doing. It's just that may be where they're at that point in time. But little things like that we can do to kind of help people prove, prove I'm excited about this is I think really important for us. But there's a philosophical question here, which is, in a way, it's kind of asking people to give something before they get, right? It's a contribution. We're asking people to make some sort of contribution. It could be very, very small. But I mean, just to be like, as an example, one of the things, this is one that's not small, is in the Writers Guild or the Writers Group. I mean, we're actually considering like that the first story that you do may be a contribution, right? As a way for us to assess the writing skills, because we don't know the level of skill that everybody brings in, right? So, but that's a pretty big, I mean, there's some philosophical questions about like, gosh, but that weeds out certain people. Certain people can't just like afford to take a whole bunch of time and contribute a piece like that. So I just wanted to throw that out as it is a philosophical question that cuts to our culture, the culture of this community.
Yeah, that's what I was really excited about the TEC actually in general. You guys spend so much time on the cultural build, the people. When you were walking through that document, the TEC and its people, I'm seeing this for the first time, so I haven't fully read it, but I think it all makes sense what you're saying, and I almost sort of felt bad that proof of competence is exactly doing what you're just saying. It asks a commitment from contributors up front. Like you first have to show that you have a certain level of competence in this case, but any form of investment lies with the contributor. So yes, it definitely helps, I guess, on filtering out people who are actually excited about the project. But at the other end, as said, I really like what you guys are doing and spending so much time, even though those small questions at the beginning of a call, how are people feeling, what's your favorite moment, all these kind of things really, I think really help people bond and connect with each other more than just finishing a task and getting something off your to-do list. So yeah, definitely wanted to add on that. Yeah.
I think that the philosophical question that you mentioned, Gideon, it's not a tricky one, but I feel it's the same. Like we pay, like you pay to Amazon before you get your package, like, and you have the guarantee that it will arrive simply because you know the process. So for me, like the remedy of this will be bring clarity and transparency regarding the process. If we specify the path and we are clear about what will be the path that you will follow if this commitment gets fulfilled, I think people have a certainty at least. And we are clear about the boundaries. We are clear about, hey, if you submit an article to the Writers Guild, it has to follow certain boundaries. It needs to have, just as an example, no more than 20 grammar issues. It should have certain length, blah 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 blah. Like we can provide the frame that brings transparency for this kind of task, so people doesn't feel that their commitment is based on nothing. Because at the moment, we are asking for people's commitment based on nothing. Like we are based on the fact that you will receive a praise, or you will receive the easy token, and that will be the reward for your commitment. But there is no guarantee on the date. So every time we answer, oh, it will be somewhere in March, that brings uncertainty to the user who wants to commit his time or is excited. So you are cutting off the excitement with uncertainty. So I feel that our job is to provide certainty on what will come next. Does that make sense, Gideon? I will open the floor. I don't know if someone else wants to comment on this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Do you want to move on, Gideon, with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if there is good, I think that's a great way of framing it. The way you just framed it, Eduardo, is like, as long as we're clear about setting those expectations, then that gets to the fairness question. It gets to transparency. It solves a whole bunch of issues that could be thorny around that. So I think that if we can assume that there's it's like an offering. It's like a gift economy, right? It's like you start by making a gift, right? You don't start by asking for a gift. You start by making a gift, right? And so that kind of sets the culture. And so you make the gift, and then the community in turn makes a gift in you, right? Which is, it starts to invest back in you, right? And through your development and things like that. So I think with that in place, like, then there's these really interesting things that we can do for doing this kind of proof of commitment, which is, maybe we should call it more like a demonstration of commitment, just so it doesn't confuse with like the proof of competence. But it's like demonstration of commitment. Then we could do, like you were talking about, Eduardo, which is like do some kind of like community-wide version of that, which is a series of things that we would like you to do. You don't have to do them all, but it's like following us on Twitter, liking certain amount of things. We'd have to think about like what that looked like and what would the mix look like for community-wide engagement. And then I think this goes to the thing that Manu was talking about, which is like, okay, then what's the equivalent of that very basic proof or demonstration of commitment within the working groups? Like helping the working groups to then design like some very basic entry level engagement that then becomes the entryway into the working group. And if there's agreement on that kind of thing, then I think there's a lot of work that we can then do to start to make that happen.
I think also what you mentioned, proof of competence, and this is, Wesley, the kind of the format that we have used so far, which is a tool or the technological part plus a human touch. So for me, the proof of competence is a tool, and the demonstration of competence is a human level. So because you need someone human to sort of verify your demonstration of competence. So for us, all these journeys or all these processes that we are using for the user should incorporate both aspects. Like not only rely on the tool, but also rely on the human touch of it, to the degree that we are managed to accomplish that. There are certain things we won't be able to do, but I think there could be an agreement on this Gideon on the sense of finding this basic level of engagements for working groups, plus um, creating this. We can test it out with the Writers Guild, very easily, and use that as a demo to see how it works, and then we can scale it to, for example, 1 or 2 working groups, and then keep scaling it until we see how it works in the meantime. Does that make sense? All right. I want to make a pause to this conversation to just ask briefly Teresa. Teresa, you have been a week here on the TEC. I mean, you have been more than a week here in the TEC, but like since our onboarding a week ago, I want to know how has been your experience. If you want to provide any feedback on the conversation that we have been having regarding newcomers. I don't know if you have taken the time to take a look at Wesley proof of competence, but anything you would like to share.
Hi. Well, actually, I first had a call with Manu, maybe like a month ago. But after that, I continued like going to calls and all of that, and then I had a call with you, which both were great. Well, like for me, what I was telling also was that um for like okay, like for me it's like easier to like read than hear at first of all, and then for example, a huge confusion I had before the onboarding call, just like being around Discord, is that there wasn't like anything written where they have like the things regarding every group. And actually another thing, like after I had the chance to be in the legal call last week, and it was great because like it's more related to like what I do on a daily basis. And I think I liked was they did have a lot of like open tasks of things that had to be done, and that for me was like very helpful because it was like, oh, it's easier because like now I know these are the things that they're needing to be worked on, so like I can see if I have the what you said, if I'm like capable of doing that work and just like helping out with it. So like that thing where they did have tasks that they needed to complete, it was like super easy for me just to like jump in, like check them out, say like, oh, I can do this or I cannot do this. Just like as a first approach to this working group in particular. And yes, basically that.
Thank you, Teresa. I think then we can also use Teresa's experience in legal to provide feedback on how this process that she's going through, demonstration of competence and the writer skill. We can create this kind of layers of boundaries for these two spaces and see how it works and plays out. We can start at a demo for that, Gideon, if that makes sense. All right. Yes, Mamane, go ahead.
I just want to say shortly that what Gideon is proposing, which is a completely logical way to proceed in terms of assessing someone's commitment, is very akin to proof of stake. It's just a human type of proof of stake, right? So that's a happy coincidence or poetic justice or whatever it is, but it's interesting. Yeah.
Thank you, Manu. Does someone else wants to share something? 5, 4. Yes,
Yeah.
I was just going to add like proof of work, and then holding tokens is like proof of stake. So there's like both of them there. Interesting.
yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Go ahead, Wesley.
Yeah, I was curious what was just described as well. If, like, you can pick up any task. Is that just within the working groups, or does something like this that exists already? Just wanted to add that it's quite common, at least in open source software development, that you have a list of good first issues, for example, or issues that you flag as help wanted, which are often tasks that probably pretty low effort. Some core contributor could probably pick it up in relatively small amounts of time, but you just leave it open specifically for new journalists to come in. You can even help them on board and pick those up. Is that what you guys are describing as well? Is that in place, or?
We do have certain issues that are open for contributors, but they are not being updated, as Manu mentioned. So, but there are issues that because of the nature of them, like writers guilds or legal department, they need to be taken by someone who has an expertise, a specific, or a capacity or a skill specific to that. For example, writers guild, of course, it's better for people who are better with words or better with writing skills. And then legal, if you're a lawyer, it's easier for you to sort of understand the scope. So there is a learning curve even for any of these two. I mean, at any point of the TEC, there is a learning curve, minimal or bigger, because of the nature of the content. But the thing is that we are working on fostering awareness in the working group for them to come out with issues that are open for contributors, or at least issues that could be shadowed by a newcomer. Because that's the other thing. We sometimes overload ourselves with work, are not aware that we could need a help, and it should be fine if we ask for help. So this is part of the culture that we are trying to sort of bring back, which is the awareness of, hey, I may be able to do this task, but if I'm being shadowed or being helped, it could be good too. So there is this, we still need to create this kind of culture and reinforce it. But the idea is that every working group will have a setup of tasks, as you mentioned, that are open for contributors or have certain levels of, availability. Just kidding.
Yeah, I just seconding that. I think that's super important. It's like being able to identify the set of tasks that maybe you call them like never ending, in the sense that we don't always need a not supervisor, but a steward to be there to kind of think of the next one. It's like, this is a silly example, but like retweet TEC tweets, right? That never ends. Like that's an example of something that's very basic, people can do. There's no permission needed. You can just do it, and you can always do it, and anybody can do it. That's like a perfect example of something like that. And when it would be great to have a system in place for each of the working groups so that they can just very easily have some base level, like ladder of engagement, or like level, like pyramid of engagement types of tasks that would be, automatically there. Anytime somebody shows up in a working group, it's just there.
Yeah, and I think also, for example, we underestimate also the capacities of people. Like, for example, Costa managed to pull out the FAQ, and that was a task that not even Manu and I had the time to do. And I was like, oh, that's a little bit tricky for a new contributor to do, but it wasn't. So there is also this, this, we just have to be more aware and more like on the know of sharing these kind of situations. All right. I'll pass it to you, Wesley, so you can introduce proof of competence, and share whatever you feel like sharing. You want to share your screen, or you want me to share?
Maybe one last comment on the previous topic. What I usually did, I mean, this wasn't for DAOs or communities, but what I often did with new people joining an organization or a team is that they actually go through the documentation. The FAQ is a good starting point, I guess. When someone new comes into the working group, ask them to review the FAQ again, or the documentation, or the wiki. So part of your first task is actually to update the onboarding documentation, because you're new to it. You immediately have that connection from getting into the space, you get familiar with it, you get familiar with the people, but at the same time, you have a lot of questions that you don't know the answer to. So when you ask them, you update the documentation at the same time. And that way it becomes sort of an iterative process, especially if a lot of new people coming in. You get new questions, everything develops, the state changes. But you have sort of it grows organically with the group that you have as well. Cool. So switch to proof of competence, I guess. So maybe a quick introduction. I work as a indie dev on a lot of different things. Also work with the EF right now in the events team. So help with organizing DevCon and DevConnect, which will be in Amsterdam in April. But I've been following the TEC for quite a while, mostly because I worked on TokenLog before, which is a tool for token-weighted quadratic voting, basically, on GitHub repos. So what it allows you to do is to vote on different issues on GitHub. And I know the TEC has used this a lot for the cultural build and setting the parameters for the hatch. So familiar with some people in the community. It was sort of I sort of come in and go every now and then. It depends a little bit on my availability and what I'm working on. But in general, I've been really focusing mostly on education, onboarding, getting people into the space. Especially this last wave, the last hype. A lot of new people came in and just did not know where to start. I think we'll always have that challenge actually with each and every wave. So yeah, I started a little bit more on education, onboarding. I worked on Use Web3, which is a curated overview of developer resources, tutorials, videos, courses, challenges, anything that gets you started. Mostly technical audience and developers though. And from that, I think actually that was the last time I joined this community calls as well. Was before Eat Lisbon, when I hacked on Proof of Competence, which is a framework to create on-chain quests and onboarding journeys. So what it does, it verifies that you have done certain actions on-chain. And also some of the, which aren't officially on-chain, but some other solutions in the ecosystem. So I have, for example, a Sybil resistance quest, which checks if your address has an ENS name registered, if you've set specific records on your ENS, like setting your avatar or setting a reverse record that it resolves back to your name, resolves back to your address. But also checks if you have a Bright ID account connected to it. It checks if you have a proof of humanity, if you're in that registry. So it gets build up sort of a social score with that. Proof of humanity is also a good example, I guess. I have been part of Proof of Humanity as well for quite a while. And I know they have been busy with getting more people involved. It's well, it will be a completely different discussion, I guess, but it's a tricky system, I guess, where you have manual verifiers who onboard new people into the registry. So they're struggling a lot with people getting, getting rejected. So they vouch for someone while it's actually a fake profile, the address doesn't match, a lot of different things. You're unmuting. Sorry?
Yeah, it's also expensive to get into Proof of Humanity.
It is.
So
it is super expensive.
Letter.
Yeah. I mean, anything on mainnet is expensive, I guess. So that's a tough one in general already. But I set up a quest for them as well, which can actually check that you have accepted or vouch for people who did not get rejected afterwards. So the barrier to entry is super easy. You can just vouch, feels good, you accept someone new, but you could maybe also accept fake profiles, your own fake profiles into the system. So in this way, the quest sort of gamifies that you properly look before vouching for someone. Because if you get rejected, you get a penalty for it. It isn't that big, or at least not from proof of competence perspective. You just won't be able to claim your POAP. But I think there's ways to create different on-chain quests, and this is sort of what I wrote in my proposal right now, which is on the forum. It's still a draft. I'm trying to get feedback. This call was already helpful to get a little bit of a better understanding of how the onboarding looks like with you guys and what you're thinking about. Had some very short conversations with them and with Gideon, very briefly, some chats talking about quizzes and just getting a basic understanding of what the TC is doing or what a working group is doing. Well, basically fits in right with what we just discussed earlier today. So maybe I'll stop here for,
Yeah,
I'm
one
muting.
question, which is very basic, and it's like, is it possible for the sake of the proposal also? So everyone here, please, there is a proposal on the agenda, and there's on the forum also that leads to the proof of competence proposal on the forum for advice process. So please comment on it and ask any questions so Wesley can also receive feedback from the community. It's also helpful for us to know. But basically, my question is it possible for the sake of the proposal to create a demo for TC, just people to understand? Because if I go to this website here and I see all this, I don't like, I don't know if this is what I will use. I don't know if this is where everyone uses, like, so for example, if I'm Proof of Humanity and I go to this website, everyone that that wants to get into the Proof of Humanity using this goes to this link or goes to the other one. Like, you know what I mean? Like, is there a specific page outside this, or everyone sees the same page, or how it works in that sense? And if we can do one for the TEC, and so people, even if it doesn't work, it doesn't have to be fully on chain, but just for people to understand how we can adapt it and gain more conviction for the voting for it to pass.
Yeah, makes sense. Maybe you want me to share screen to go through it?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Sounds good. So to answer your question, everyone sees the same. Everyone sees the same. Oh, we got the right screen now. You see my screen? Some proof of competence. Okay, cool. Sorry. So everyone sees the same screen. And I think this is really what is lacking right now. I've heard it a lot. It's a little bit confusing if you don't know what proof of competence is. You end up here, you see some quests here, but there's very little context or information what is happening right now. You do see, because I'm logged in as myself here, this is my main Ethereum account, which has my ENS, and I register for most of the projects from this account. So you can actually see when, or let me switch. It just starts counting already. So there isn't really a linear sort of module that you go through for complete this task first, then you go to this one, then you go to this one. So it isn't very structured. It's mostly just verifying whatever you did or whatever this quest specifies. It checks if that address has actually done it. So in this case, again, logged in myself. These are the 6 quests that are relevant for Proof of Humanity. So the first one is you need to be a member of their registry. You get 100 points for that. I'm part of the registry, so I got a checkbox, completed, 100 points. I vouch for, if you vouch for someone, you get another 100 points. So vouch for 5 people, I get 500 points. And the list goes on. If you participated in governance on Snapshot, you get 50 points per vote. You get points if you trust someone else. You delegated your stake to someone else on Snapshot. You get points for becoming a delegate. Someone else delegates their voting power to you. You get points for authoring a proposal. So all of these, depending on the community, of course, you can specify which kind of tasks are relevant for within that community and assign tasks or points to that. And if someone logs in, it immediately starts counting. So let me... go for it.
Can you create subtasks?
Subtask, no, not at this point.
Okay.
You can,
and can you
multiple tasks though. So it's not really a subtask, but you can create multiple tasks which has one points for it, sort of an or statement. So you, let me show another one. For developer DAO, we did something similar. They wanted to, they're doing their code airdrop soon, regular token airdrop, and they wanted to check if people had a POAP or participated on Snapshot governance. So that sort of became an or statement. So this last task here is, it's like that. It verifies one or the other.
And can you choose, for example, rather than giving you points, is it possible, for example, to mint tokens by completing the task? For example, you get 0.05 TC tokens by completing one task.
Right now, it's not. The only rewards right now that you can make is self-attestation using Ethereum attestation servers, or mint a POAP.
All right. Does anyone else have questions regarding this? You can keep showing Wesley's in the meantime.
Sure, yeah. So this is another one, and this is a little bit more a demo quest from proof of competence. So you need to have somewhere an identity registered. So that could be an ENS, could be on Bright ID, could be proof of humanity, or self ID. And if you have any of those, you can claim a POAP. I ran all out. People are always excited about POAPs. So you can't claim these anymore. But that's when you add a reward to it. Let me see. Go for it.
Oh yeah, just want to ask you, what will you need for us to collaborate on this?
I think there's two aspects here. The proposal mostly described on continuing development on this, get some funding to continue developing it as an open source tool, which benefits the larger ecosystem. I'll maybe save this for another session, but everything is on GitHub. You can specify, very similar to how I did with token lock, you can specify a JSON file which adds tasks and verifiers to it. So as a community, you can, I'm really accepting basically any PR, any pull request that would add a quest to proof of competence. So you can start playing around with that. But I also saw some guys from Bankless, for example, they forked proof of competence and built an initial Bankless Academy quest system with that as well. So that's all good. I mean, I just want to contribute to the space and build public goods and help communities and DAOs and projects to use this. So that's the first. Hoping to get a little bit of funding to continue development. But at the same time, I would be really excited, of course, to see how we can implement this at the same time for the TC or Communitas.
Yeah, I will suggest you that. I would suggest, like, in my mind would be ideal to have like a sort of a list, a visualization of a demo for the TEC, and then we can present in the community calls. So you can provide like, or even without the demo, you can just talk about it, the proposal, because we are doing that for most of the proposals. We are on top of the hour. Is there someone who have a question for Wesley and POC? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Is there something else you would like to close it up, Wesley, before we finish?
Not for now, no. We're looking forward to feedback. As shared already, there's a proposal on the forum. Have a look. Reach out to me. I'm available on Discord, Telegram, whatever. Feel free to reach out.
All right. Your DMs are closed, by the way, so we cannot reach you out without with a friend request.
I'll open them now.
I tried, and I couldn't. So I think this is a very interesting project. You see how we align with sort of the proof of competence and demonstration of capacities. So I think we will probably keep looking forward to collaboration with this and see how we can implement it in a way or another. I have seen other. There is Other Space. I don't know if you're familiar with Other Space. Other Space is quite similar to what you're developing. Other, like the animal space, like Other Space XYZ. The difference is that they are building a product that looks like a DeFi product rather than a public good product. So it's more of a product that it's the branding and have this aesthetic and all this stuff. But it looks, I don't know, it gives me a different vibe. I like this. I like your project vibe and the simplicity that it has, and how easy it seems to set up. So yeah, I think it will be something interesting to fund as a TEC. Anyways, does anyone else wants to comment something before we close up? 5, 4, 3, 2. All right. Look forward to see you all next Monday. Wesley will still be in touch. Please go to Wesley's forum post and comment and read the proposal and provide your feedback if that fits you. and we will work on what we have talked today, Gideon, and along Manu and Costa, to see how we can, start creating these ladders of engagement for working groups and bringing awareness to the community. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. Sorry, it was a very long session, but thank you for joining, and